Yo, what's going on? Mike from Mike Talk Sports. BYU is hosting their pro day today, and it is headlined by their quarterback prospect, Jaren Hall, who's the quarterback that succeeded Zach Wilson at BYU. Is Jaren Hall the next Zach Wilson? So if you turn on Jaren Hall's tape and you really just watch the highlights, you're going to go, oh my God, why isn't this guy a first round, second round, third round prospect? Why is this guy not getting talked about at the top of the draft? Is there just some caution because of Zach Wilson and how he has panned out in his second season? There's definitely a lot of high highs on Jaren Hall's tape, and he necessarily really doesn't have a lot of low lows. It's just, I think myself included, along with the NFL community, has kind of looked back on Zach Wilson's tape and said, some of these things are why Zach Wilson was able to succeed so well at BYU and why BYU sneakily produces a lot of quarterback talent at the next level. BYU, I want to say, is the only college in college football history that has produced 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. So BYU, a bit of a quarterback factory in that way. Of course, they really haven't had a significant successful guy since Steve Young in their program. But getting into BYU, the number one thing that they do that makes it extremely hard to evaluate their quarterback prospects and is a reason why Zach Wilson has struggled at the next level is their offensive line and the speed of the defensive line going from college to the next level. NFL quarterbacks say this all the time. A great example is the Peter King interview with Trevor Lawrence going into this season and last season's offseason. And basically, Trevor Lawrence answers this question by saying, by far the biggest adjustment, it's not the coverages, it's not the cornerbacks, it's not the NFL playbook, it is the sheer speed of the defensive line and how quickly your processor needs to be sped up. BYU, and why I really bring this up when talking about Jaren Hall and why it's the first point of this video, is because BYU's offensive line is really good. They do an incredible job of letting the quarterback really play backyard football in there in a sense. So it is so hard to gauge Zach Wilson and Jaren Hall's pre and post snap processor. And I'm going to be completely honest, I don't think Jaren Hall has a great pre-snap processor and a good post-snap processor. But getting a little bit more into Jaren Hall, and I'm going to touch on that later on in this video. He's 6 foot tall. He's 207 pounds, so he's not huge in there. He's not a big framed quarterback, but it's okay because he is very athletic. He has good sneaky athleticism. I was reading some of the notes on NFL.com, and it really significantly downplayed the athleticism of a Jaren Hall. He's not a Justin Fields-esque runner in terms of his pure straight line speed, but he is a bit Justin Fields-esque in the sense of he's going to look to turn the corner on you and burn you for a 60-yard run. Again, he doesn't necessarily have that speed at the next level, but he did display it somewhat at BYU. And his play extension before the line of scrimmage is actually very impressive. He's a guy who gets the ball in his hands. He's going to look for that first read, and he's extremely good at getting that first read out extremely quickly. Something that jumps off to you right away is something that Zach Wilson had as well, and it's that flick of the wrist release that he does possess, which is great at the next level. That absolutely does work in the NFL, that really quick release. Sometimes, though, I see that really quick release and that lack of pre-snap processor kind of bite him in the ass in terms of his accuracy a little bit. Sometimes he'll make a read where the read isn't necessarily there and he'll realize it halfway through the throwing motion, and his throwing motion is so quick to the point where he can't really draw back on his throw, so the ball will be very inaccurate. But most of the time he allows that inaccurate pass to kind of be a ground ball or sailed instead of being sailed into the defender. Getting into his stats, this is really reflected in his stats. His interception to touchdown ratio is absolutely incredible. So last year he threw for 3,171 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. In 2021, he threw 20 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. So Jaren Hall is a guy who's really going to take care of the football. Not only is he going to take care of the football, he's not going to take a lot of sacks either. Again, that play extension behind the line of scrimmage really works out in Jaren Hall's favor. And again, he's decisive with the football. He's not great at reading a defense post-snap. And when you associate a guy who can't read a defense with insane proficiency, you associate that guy with really indecisiveness. He gets the ball and he starts patting the ball ball, he starts hitching up in the pocket, and then, oh no, he took a bad sack. That's something that was really prevalent in a prospect like Josh Rosen, for example. Whereas Jaren Hall, if his pre-snap and post-snap read isn't there and his first read isn't there, he's going to run right away. He's extremely decisive in that sense, which I really like that quality from Jaren Hall. Now, I would like to see him stand in the pocket for a little bit longer and just kind of sit in the pocket and read your progressions a little bit. But to me, Jaren Hall has a pretty solid pocket presence. It's nothing too crazy, but Jaren Hall, it's funny, he wants to be a pocket passer until he does not want to. It's like he has a button inside of his brain that goes pass, 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 run. Like he is very decisive in that sense. Again, a positive trait from Jaren Hall. He has really solid ball placement with good downfield touch. It's almost feather-like the way the ball just kind of drops into his receiver's shoulders downfield. I think he has solid downfield accuracy. Again, there's some examples on tape of that downfield accuracy not looking too sharp, but again, he does put the ball in a place where either the receiver's getting it or the guy, the cameraman on the sideline is going to get that ball. Very few times did I look at Jaren Hall and went, oh man, that was a turnover-worthy play, but you kind of got bailed out by the defense not really having that ball hawk in the secondary. So I don't necessarily think that is the case with Jaren Hall, which again is a positive. I like Jaren Hall. He is a 25-year-old redshirt senior prospect, which makes it a little bit tough in terms of his mental development at the next level. How much better is he really going to get? But again, I compare him to a more athletically gifted, less mentally developed Brock Purdy. So I would absolutely love to see Jaren Hall in a system like a Shanahan system. He would be great with those play action bootlegs and those shallow crossing routes. I think he would really excel at getting outside of the pocket, better than a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo and better than a guy like Brock Purdy, and he has a stronger arm than a guy like Brock Purdy. Getting into some of the dream scenarios I would really like to see Jaren Hall go to. Really the first one that jumps out to my mind is the Los Angeles Rams. I would love to see him back up Matt Stafford, a guy who is a little bit questionable in terms of his injury history, a guy who's been banged up the last couple seasons and really his entire career. I would love to see him in that Sean McVay system where you get the ball out really quick, but there's those longer development routes to really show off that arm talent that he does have. Again, it's not adequate with Zach Wilson's arm talent, but still nonetheless, he has solid arm talent. And I would really like to see him tap into that high potential in terms of his athleticism and just play extension behind the offensive line. To me, I would draft him in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. I don't think he falls until the 7th round. I like him as a quarterback prospect. He's a guy who's going to be very, very polarizing in terms of NFL teams and how they view him. I could see teams viewing him as high as their 7th quarterback. That's my high-end projection, 6th, 7th quarterback in this draft. But the low-end projections, I'm seeing him outside of the top 10 on not only a lot of people's lists, but I'm seeing a lot of rumblings that he's not even in the top 10 of some NFL teams. So I think a team like the Rams end up taking a chance on Jaren Hall. I think he's a guy that can have some polarizing starts. If his accuracy is on and the game plan is on, this kid is going to have a really good performance. He's a guy who realistically is probably going to fizzle out of the NFL in 2 or 3 years if he gets drafted by a bad organization with a bad scheme and a bad coach. But again, he goes to a team like the 49ers that really will cater to his skill set, run that Shanahan system, then I think he could be a very high-end backup with some desirable starting traits within him. So Jaren Hall, very interesting prospect. Can't wait to watch his pro day and can't wait to see where he ends up in the NFL draft.